All right,
gang.
But somebody sitting on the ground based on how low it was.
Yeah, potentially. The Sudafed Kid is back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast, world's most dangerous youth baseball podcast. I'm your host, Deven Morgan.
Does that make me Butch Cassidy if you're the Sudafed Kid?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, Butch Cassidy and the Sudafed Kid. Take two. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the Driveline Academy podcast, and I'll try to not ruin the intro this time. My name is Deven Morgan, Director of Baseball at Driveline, founder of the Driveline Academy, and I'm joined, as per usual, by my brother and partner, my co-host, Driveline Academy Assistant Director, Driveline Academy International Man of Mystery, Jeremy Tecktiel. If you are joining us on an audio platform and you hear me sounding a little congested, then welcome to the last, 5 days of my life.
And it's way better today.
Yeah. I was in the facility on Friday, just looking like the Toxic Avenger. Man, it was a tough scene.
It was rough.
It was a tough scene. But we'll get into all of that stuff as we kind of hit this. We've got a potpourri of topics for you today. But first, housekeeping as per usual. ABCA.com code DL20 will get you 20% off. I threw it into ChatGPT and I told it to give me two random words, and it said Dawn Loom.
Like DAWN?
Yeah, and then loom like a
Okay.
Used a loom to like make shirts and stuff,
like
right?
cotton.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I don't know
stuff.
Yeah, I don't know if they use a loom to make it or just like
to
separate it after it's been picked. Like I think you have to separate part of the plant. I don't know. I don't remember the Eli Whitney that block of social studies in like fifth or sixth grade.
Funny enough, a loom is a device used to weave cloth and tapestry.
There you go.
So for all you
it's a weaver, not a separator.
Yeah,
okay.
that's the word I was looking for. So for all you tapestry enthusiasts, Dawn Loom 20 will get you 20% off at axbat.com. What are you going to buy at axbat.com? Bats and bats and bats and bats and more bats. Training bats, game bats, other training stuff you can all find with our good friends at axbat.com.
And I'll throw this one out.
Yes.
Uniforms.
Well, are we supposed to put that out there? Yeah, why not?
Why not? I mean, we're not gonna get any kickbacks from it.
No,
like nothing to our scholarship fund. But
yeah, but we'll just do that for the homeboys over at Axe. So Axe has this uniform builder on their website now. It's really cool. We've seen the uniforms themselves. The uniforms are really cool. So if you're a small mom and pop team, you're like trying to go to, I don't know, some big national retailer to get your uniforms done, and you don't feel like they're going to pay attention to you, talk to your friends over at axbat.com.
Yeah. They do have slanted jersey sleeves. No, I'm just kidding. But
no, it's pretty cool.
It's very cool.
It's really cool. It's really cool. So axbat.com code DL20 Dawn Loom again for all of our weaving and tapestry.
And we
listeners.
we're this is gonna sound weird if you don't understand this term, but we're dog feeders here. So like we eat our own dog food. So
That's
like we use Axe. And we'll be using Axe for our uniforms this year. So
that's right.
I would never tell you to do something that we're not going to do ourselves.
That's right. And the other sponsor we should kind of be talking about again is Strider 4DL. It's my buddy Ryan Freeman, his company Strider. Strider4DL.com is the website that he built. And it really just kind of goes in depth about not only what Strider's doing, but also gives us some props, which is nice because Raya's the homie. So one of the things that like Ryan, what he's doing here is basically trying to hook up anybody that wants discounted rates on either digital marketing or website development. So again, you're a youth baseball enthusiast. You find this podcast, whether it's your first or your last listen to our particular show, and you are running a local team and you are intimidated by the thought of like trying to build a website for yourself, but you want to be able to put your stuff up there and try to communicate with people. Talk to our buddy Ryan, Strider4DL.com. Because like the discounts he's got here are pretty significant. It's a $500 discount on a 10-page site. Damn. It's a $900 discount on a 20-page site. And then he's got e-com and like all this marketing stuff behind that. So Strider4DL.com. Go talk to our buddy Ryan. Tell him you are a listener of the pod and he will hook you up. And it also, again, works for our scholarship fund, which is why we do all this sponsorship stuff. All right. Done. So we've got a potpourri of topics to talk about today. The first thing that I will say is just kind of like, I guess this is quasi housekeeping. Kenny Mayne, friend of the pod, man, look, you know, I'm a born in 77 guy, right? So you know my age, you know, like that lineage of like SportsCenter anchors and personalities, and like Kenny, you know, Kenny's at the top of the food chain. You know, it's Kenny and Stuart Scott and Chris Berman, like those are the guys. Yeah. And it's just like I got a text from Kenny when I was in Georgia, and it's just like it's Kenny Mayne, man. It's Kenny Mayne. Kenny did a movie called Wiffle Ball. So Kenny, when he was a much younger and life was, effervescent in front of him.
Didn't have to wear a knee brace.
That's right. Didn't have to wear a knee brace. Did this spot back in the day where he and Ken Griffey Jr. were throwing wiffle balls. And they got in this with a radar gun. And they got in a little bit of a contest to see who could throw a wiffle ball harder. And on that particular day, Kenny actually threw a wiffle ball harder than Ken Griffey Jr. So then Kenny, 3 decades removed from this, wanted to see if he could replicate the feat, right? And one of the things he did was he came down to the lab here. I tried to talk Kenny into doing a mocap, but at the time, this is previous to our markerless mocap system, which for anybody that doesn't know, necessitates you kind of get down into the skivvies to go and do the whole thing. And Kenny very quickly was like, nah.
Yeah, I am not getting into my skivvies.
Not going to do
He also
that.
joined a 15U practice.
Yes, he did. So Kenny came
And it made
down.
me feel incredibly old because none of the kids knew who we were. They were like, who's this old man practicing with us? And it's like, oh, that's sad.
That's a legend himself, dude. So Kenny came down, threw in the lab, and we were able to get some radar gun readings on his wiffle ball throws. I won't spoil it because obviously I want you to go to Fubo Sports and check out the movie. And then Kenny was doing some promo for the movie, which just dropped this last Thursday. Okay. And in one of those things, he went on. Oh my gosh, again, being sick and trying to be a human being is the worst because my brain starts to not work very well. But Kenny did a radio show with oh my gosh, I am Dan Liebetard.
Oh, my favorite.
Yeah, so he did their show, and they had some of the guys on Dan's show. Beat Kenny's number of throwing the wiffle ball. Kenny is a smart man, and he was like, "Hey, this seems a little odd, right?" So Kenny sent me a message, and then I went to go look at the clip, and I sent Kenny a 5-paragraph explanation for why the number was probably a little bit wrong. They had a very cheap $60 Amazon radar gun. It was sub 10 feet distance. So any number of reasons why the misread is very, very likely. So anyways, point being, Wiffle Ball is a really cool movie. My dumbass is in it for probably 30 seconds. You should go to fubosports.com and check it out. Okay. I think the big thing we can probably start about is just why I was in Georgia, the third annual ABCA Youth Summit. And I think the number one thing I need to say is, number one, if you're not a member of the American Baseball Coaches Association, you should be. Even if you're a parent and you're doing a little coaching on the side, get an ABCA membership. The amount of just educational resource that you would get if you just go to abca.com and you never attend a convention in and of itself is well worth it. And again, you don't have to attend the convention if you're an ABCA member because the stuff gets posted online. You can access all the content there. Now you're going to miss things like the proverbial hot stoves that are always one of the joys of ABCA.
Always fun. I mean, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you also, not only is the educational material, if you never leave the ABCA website, worth it, but you get, with your ABCA membership, a bunch of different discount codes at different places, and that is going to be worth your money right there if you want to buy gear or things like that.
Yeah, there's a ton of resources. One of the things is
it's like AARP.
It's absolutely. Yeah. It's car rental insurance.
Right.
Or I'm sorry, car rental rates.
Right. You would be shocked at the amount of things you can get discounts on with your ABCA.
Yeah.
membership.
So first of all, big shout out to ABCA, and to get really specific about it. This is the third year that we've had the summit. I've been lucky enough to be at all 3 of those years, and that's solely through the grace of Rob Haney, who is a member of the ABCA board. He's the chair of the youth committees. And Rob is also a high school baseball coach of over 30 years, and he just he retired, and he's coming back because as coaches, it's we all think that we're done, and then something happens, and it's I'm just going to keep coaching.
Pull me back in to Tony Montana.
He'll be coaching at Langley again this year, or Langley this year. He came back over to kind of restart that program because if I remember correctly, Rob graduated from Langley. But all this stuff that we've been working on for 3 years with the ABCA Youth Summit is really just it's at Rob's discretion. He's the one that reached out to all these different people from like large national organizations to get them in the room and talk about the stuff that he knows and he's seeing, right? Like Rob also runs the Northern Virginia Travel Baseball League, which has like over 400 teams in it. So he's seeing at the ground level some of the stuff that's happening in youth baseball. He is seeing kind of the long-term effects of that stuff in high school ball, and he cares. And he cares, and he cares, and he cares. So all, again, like the credit for this thing really, really just goes to Rob. But this year, we've had these, the first 2 years of it was kind of like, we got in a room, we talked about all the stuff that's going on with youth baseball, and it was like, well, I'm mad about this. I'm and you know me, like I'm not particularly guarded about the feelings that I have about stuff. So I was very happy to be in the room. But this year, going into it, we really wanted to come out with some action plans. And we do. We have 3 specific things that are going to get worked on, developed, and iterated before we get to ABCA for implementation in 2025. Awesome. And it comes down to stuff that we talk about all the time on this show: parent education, coaching education, and rules. And the parent education stuff, hey, man, you know what that means. Like, it's just putting resources out to parents, branded by like this a coalition of people that are kind of like, hey, look, we got to have some perspective here, right? And I would love to have every parent in the country go through a PCA course, right? There's some economic blockers to doing that because we pay for our parents to go through PCA, right? So the coalition's kind of intention there is to put out some stuff for free that's endorsed by like high-level organizations and goes out at scale. Coaching education, same thing, right? Same exact concept. The rules thing, though, your boy is the chair of this little rules subcommittee now, and obviously the thing that we're going to attack is pitch counts. Specifically, the implementation of a universal pitch count and rest standard across a variety of event organizational companies in youth baseball. We need it, right? We need it, and there are a number of layers to like fixing this problem, right? I'm not under the impression right now that we even have a pitch count number that we're like really satisfied with. Right. Everything that I think we've learned about workload for kids would suggest that like the pitch smart standard probably needs some updating.
Yeah, realistically, if we have to go by pitch count, which is the thing we're going to have to do, like we can't mandate pulse, but we're going to have to be more conservative because pitch count is not one size fits all, and if we have to err on one side, it's going to be on the more conservative side as opposed to like there are definitely kids who have the chronic workload and ability to handle more throwing than other kids, whether that's higher volume, more frequency, whatever it is. And like, if we had a little bit better of a way of doing this, maybe we could go based off a different metric and really cater it towards the individual athlete. But universal pitch counts is going to have to be on the more conservative side.
Yeah,
which is fine.
And I think one of the things, I've had some conversations with Lord Business, CEO of Driveline Baseball, Mike Rathwell, about some solves that we can come up with on the technological side using the data that we have to try to figure out what a better number would be, right? And I don't really know how to code, but I played a little bit around in R last summer. Thank God for ChatGPT, dude. Thank God. Because I can ask really stupid questions and ChatGPT can tell me how to do the thing. So I was playing around in R and kind of leveraged some of the data that we got out of the Pulse database, trying to kind of figure out what a broad range of workloads look like for a specific age of kids. And, we talked about different ways to do it. Do you normalize for body weight too? And honestly, I don't think you need to do that. And the way that I'm kind of thinking about it now is broadly, if we understand that kids don't produce a ton of force, period. That's just a thing. We also understand that the most common injuries we deal with are like the repetitive stress injuries that then lead to growth plate fractures and all the other stuff can kind of move down the line. It might make sense when you're thinking about the standard, and again, we're going to have to play with this using the pulse data and try to validate this idea, which may be smart, may be stupid. I think that there's a possibility where like the single day pitch counts might be a little bit more forgiving in terms of like giving kids a little bit more runway for volume. But what I want to constrain is like coming back and doing that thing with inadequate rest. That's the thing I think is leading to more of these issues. So it's possible the standard could be like, hey, on a single day basis, maybe the pitch counts are a little bit more, there's a little bit more volume that's allowed, but you're really curtailing the thing that I think we all worry about, which is, 30 on a Friday, 30 on a Saturday, and 150 on a Sunday. Like those type of repeated spikes to the acute, I think are the thing that really could freak us out. So we're working on that. And it's dropped in my lap, and I'm, very, very privileged to be able to try to contribute to the group that way. And I'll be honest that, we had some large players in the room. There's one very large player that wasn't in the room, and that's Little League. And I guess all I can tell you guys is that I know Rob has had those conversations with them. They seem satisfied with where things are right now and don't want to change. And all we can do is, I think, do the work that we can relative to the people that are participating. So we're talking about Babe Ruth and PBR and USSSA and Perfect Game. Like those are that's the big players, right? And I will, again, like third year of this summit, the previous years, some of those organizations weren't present. And the fact that they actually came this year, not only that, but they actually are interested in participating in the conversation. Dude, shout out to Lane Petrie, shout out to Tuck, man. Those guys, just think about it economically, right? Their businesses are going well. They don't really have a lot of incentive right now to do something different other than, and again, shout out to Taylor from Perfect Game, man. Like they care, and they're receiving the information about how things are going, and they are trying to take some amount of action on it. Now, look, we got a long ways to go. We have a long ways to go. And what I've kind of talked to those guys about is for 2025, I think we should just test. Like we have to test. We shouldn't jump into this thing and go like, hey, I know how to fix it, because I don't. And even if I did, each one of those organizations, PBR, PG, UTRIP, PBR is bullpen tournaments, right? That's their tournament organization. They all have their own unique operational structure right now. So getting them to do the exact same thing when they don't operate the same way right now, like there's some steps involved. But again, credit to those dudes for actually being present and wanting to have the conversation.
Trying to find a solution.
Yeah, man. Like I don't take that for granted, because there's a real significant difference between, first year we did this in DC, second year we did it at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Both of those years, my dumbass is up there and, I doing like not a State of the Union, but like this is the stuff that we're seeing. And I don't know if that's just because I'm an aggressively online person in this very specific niche. But I see these things and I think about them in terms of like the structure that allows for them to happen. So, for the first 2 years I did that, it's like I'm just, old man.
Shout out to Dave Navarre. You feel like you're the crazy person.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And it's, I'm just old man yells at cloud meme. Right.
And when you go to an event like that and you're not, there are some big players there that maybe weren't there in the past. You, and I'm projecting here, so you can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm fairly confident I'm not, but like you feel like, oh, some of the work I've done the last couple of years is clearly making a difference. Like they're actually showing up now. Like, 3 years ago I was a man yelling at the cloud standing in the middle of the street, and now like a couple of pretty big people have joined me in the middle of the street and like have heard me, and like a little bit of validation which is always good because.
Yeah.
we don't always get it. you know?
And I mean, so I was telling you about how little sleep that I got, which contributed to the whole, sinus infection of death. But like, for anybody that doesn't know, your boy doesn't sleep when I travel. So left on Monday, slept for like, if I said it was an hour and a half on Monday night, that would be generous. So Tuesday was kind of our meet and greet welcome stuff. Maybe got 3 hours of sleep on Wednesday or on Tuesday night. So rolling into Wednesday, which was our first like official working day, I had probably a combined total of like 4.5 hours of sleep. And I went in and I had my deck put together and I'm like, I know that these big players are in the room and it can't be me standing up in front of a podium, like pointing at them and being like, you're screwing this up. And like, it can't be that.
It could have been. It easily could have been, right?
Could have been.
Right.
It could have been. So I wrote the deck from that perspective because I want to welcome them as participants in this conversation. And that starts with like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. What are you dealing with?
Right.
What are you dealing with? What's the operational structure that you have? What are the complexities of your organization and the way that you're running these things that might be contributing to the position that you have right now?
Curiosity, not judgment, you say.
Big Ted Lasso guy. Big Ted Lasso guy. And, we started that first working day on Wednesday. Billy Wagner, future Hall of Famer, was there for a whole weekend. And I didn't say this to Billy because I don't want to be a fanboy around him, but like, that was my guy, dude.
Was it shocking that you were, I'm guessing, like bigger than he was?
Well, so here's the thing. We're probably about the same height.
Okay.
That's the thing about athletes, man. You look at their legs.
Yeah.
Look at like Billy Wagner is still built.
Yeah.
Still built.
Still has to have custom pants to fit the rest of the body.
Yeah, like that type of stuff. So Billy starts us off on Wednesday, and Billy's coaching high school ball, and he coaches some summer ball too. Like he's seeing all this stuff. Same thing with Rob Haney, right?
And should mention has a child who made his major league debut this year.
Facts, and
so has been through this as a parent as well as
right.
like an athlete who's
right.
obviously done it on the biggest stage.
Right, because and again, Billy Wagner threw hundos when that wasn't really a thing.
Was not a thing.
Fun fact: Billy Wagner, right-handed.
Really?
As a kid, he broke his left arm. He broke his right arm twice. Had to figure out how to throw. He throws left-handed. Adaptations, man. Like
just break your kid's arm with the
break your kid's arm. You're gonna throw hundos.
Hey, lefties are always better. So
yeah.
if your kid's a righty, break it early, and then you get the adaptations early.
Allegedly. So Billy started us off and really just, I think, grounded us in the reality of like, what's the point of all this? And the point of all this is that like, we really care about the game. All of us, men and women, are old enough that we are well past our playing days, but like, we're still passionate about it. We talked a little bit about the business stuff, and then I started up there, and I had every intention to remain very, 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 very professional, right? Because again, I know who my audience is, and my audience is people who are new to this space and these discussions we've been having for the last 2 years. And then like the 4.5 hours of combined sleep started to hit, and my passion meter started going through the roof, which means my cursing meter started going through the roof. And then it's just like, look, man, I know I'm in a room full of baseball coaches, and I'm just going to talk. And like, you guys, I think when we did our parental advisory episode a couple episodes ago, we didn't really it was pretty light.
It was light.
It was pretty light.
Yeah, even if I got a text message from somebody who listens to this that we swore too much. We absolutely did not, Paul.
No. Well, and again, put a microphone in the middle of a room through a bunch of baseball coaches, you're going to hear some color, right?
I'm not necessarily proud of this, but there's a reason I have never been mic'd up during a practice.
Right.
Like we have not posted I don't think a single piece of content ever of me mic'd up during a practice.
Well, now we have to.
Well,
now we just absolutely have to. So I got immediately I finished, and then I'm just like, oh geez, dude, did I just go too far? And thank God for Billy Wagner and Pudge Gorman and Rob Haney and Ryan Brownlee, first of all, dudes that I look up to. like I legit look up to, and I, you know, because I'm not yet 50, and those guys are a little bit advanced from me. Still many, many years of good years ahead of them. And it's just like, man, that's the type of guy I want to be. You know, like still as a 47-year-old man, I still look at dudes like that who've been in this game for a really long time. It's like, man, you carry yourself with honor and integrity, and you're doing it the right way. And it's a phenomenal group to be a part of. So yeah, we got some stuff actually happening, like on this idea of a unified universal pitch count. It's not going to happen overnight. We have a lot of testing to do. But you know, for those of you who, you know, you feel like there's, I don't know, it's some combination of like apathy and stasis. I don't know which one it is about the way that the direction of our industry is going. The thing that I can tell you from the spot that we have on this pod of, you know, easing into 200,000 people to listen to it, the people involved at the top of the food chain that are in charge of these structures are like interested in trying to change.
Yep.
Like it's really, really, really good. So we got some stuff coming. And again, I think we're just going to test, you know, like right now, one of the things when I was talking to, you know, the guys in my working group, so that's the PBR, bullpen, PG, U-Trip, firecracker tournaments as well. Shout out to Michael and Babe Ruth. You know, we kind of have like three different standards right now. You got PitchMart, and that's been around for a while, and it hasn't been updated in quite some time. I mean, we're nearing 10 years. You have PG runs their own standard for, it's a combination of like pitch count and or innings. So that's a standard that exists. Alan Jaeger, shout out to the GOAT, Alan Jaeger, put out a standard last summer that was a little bit different than PitchMart. It was a little bit more, and I think it might be the direction that we're going, a little bit more conservative in terms of the rest after the workload. And then, you know, I think what we're going to be able to do is leverage the data that we have through Pulse to try to like quantify, if you build up to a workload of X, how many rest days does it take to kind of switch subsides to level Y where you could pitch again? So we've got 4 different standards I think we're going to be able to have. And if you go PG, PBR bullpen, U-Trip, and Babe Ruth, am I forgetting somebody?
Firecracker.
Firecracker. Yeah, we've got 4, 5, 6 different environments we can test them in 2025.
And the thing is, like, this is the way that it has to be. And, like, yes, we all, you listening, I'm sure the two of us would like this change to happen within the next 3 weeks. And, like,
sure.
we're done, we're good. But, like, this stuff has to be tested out, right? There's a reason, like, every change that comes to Major League Baseball gets tested out in multiple leagues because, like, there are downsides that we don't quite know. Like, we have to go through this process of, like, what are the downsides? How hard are these things to hold people accountable? Like, each of these standards, you know, to combine them all and come up with one universal one, we're going to have to, like, do a lot of testing and figure out where the pros and cons are.
That's right.
So this is, like, the start, which is the most important part. We're starting this process, and it's going to be a long process to, like, actually figure out where the best thing is. And, like, my guess, which you could yell at me because you're the chair of this committee, but, like, we're never going to stop.
No,
this is going to be an ever-changing thing that, like, we're always going to be kind of tinkering with this, looking at this, collecting new data and changing it based on what we now know. And that's, like, a really important piece of this. So, like, this is really, really good that we are starting this conversation and that, like, we have the most important partners, honestly, across the country involved in this conversation and ready to start this, because that is the hardest part. Because in a lot of cases, you can look at this and see that mountain of work that is to be done and, like, research to be collected, and it's really daunting and overwhelming, and it's easy to go back to USA to just, like, PitchMart. And just, like, the thing that we've been doing, it's easy. And, like, we're doing the not easy thing, and that's really, really cool and good to see. And, like, if you're listening to us and your kid is 13, we may, by the time that kid's graduated from high school, we may still not be where we need to be, but, like, it is so important that, like, we are actually starting this and really kicking this thing off.
Well,
finally.
and honestly, I was thinking of you. I was thinking of you when we were talking about like how do we start testing, because you and I have had some conversations lately about even decisions we're just making with the business about like, you know, we want to be data driven. We got to leverage the data.
Right.
And I'm sitting there thinking about like this. It seems like it's like a monolith of just like the amount of work that's in front of you to try to unpack this thing. And it's like, okay, this seems really daunting, but wait, we have some stuff we can test.
And you got to start somewhere.
We just got to get from 0 to 1.
Like the biggest thing that obviously like comes into my head when all this comes is like the holding people accountable piece for this, right?
Yes.
Because I think most people would agree that we need some sort of universal rule set, and most coaches are going to agree with that. Okay, well, what happens if it gets broken during a tournament, right? Yep. Like, it's a
huge question,
right? Is it just like what happens now, which we've seen in games here, and the level of vitriol that comes with it is astounding. But like, coach gets ejected, kid gets ejected, and obviously pulled off the mound. Yep. If he's thrown too many pitches in a short span, there is nothing like if we did that in a tournament. If the other team, it's on the other team to report it. If the other team reports it, coach gets ejected, kid gets yanked off the mounds.
Yep.
Nothing else happens. We could still win that tournament. There's no further repercussions. We can register for the next weekend and do it all over again the next weekend. That to me is by far going to be the hardest part of this, is figuring out the accountability piece, what the repercussions are, how does that actually look, what happens if a kid plays back-to-back weekends, a PBR and a PG.
Yes.
Like, are they, and then like breaks the rest standard going from one organization to the other, and each organization in their own lane is doing a really good job.
Yeah.
But when kids bounce back and forth, which happens all the time, how are we holding? And like, there's so many questions to be answered.
Yep.
But we have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean that part in and of itself, how do you hold people accountable is going to be a completely daunting task.
Because the thing
even
that
after we figure out the pitch,
because the thing that you're convicted, I'm sure.
Yeah.
I am convicted, and I'm sure most of the people that are in this space are convicted. Is we can't punish the kids for this.
No,
because this is not the kids. This is the adult asking the kid to go out there and throw. The kid's always going to want to say yes. So like, making this an accountability thing where like the kid has to miss the next tournament or whatever can't be the thing.
Yeah.
Or like, you know, the team can't sign up for next weekend's tournament. The kids are the ones that are punished by it. Like, it's really hard to come up with an accountability piece that doesn't directly punish the kids.
Yeah.
And like it's going to take a while, but like we're starting, which is like really, really important.
And again, you know, the need persists. You know, like the need persists. Like one of the slides that I had in the deck, a 9U team with an overall record of 72, 20, and 4. And you know, I've said it on the pod probably 10 times. You know, I think that if I sat down with the parents, the men and women that are running that team, we would probably be in agreement that like we're just trying to do right by our kids, and they think that playing 96 games at 9U is in service of that. So the consequence piece,
and they don't take that second step to think, okay, 96 games is 600 plus innings. Assuming that some of those games are going to be Mercer ruled. The average is 7 innings. Some of those games are going to be Mercer ruled. We're probably talking around 600 innings.
It's at least 500 plus, right?
And like, I'm going to guess the entire roster doesn't pitch. If there's 10 kids in a team, they all pitch, that's 60 innings per kid for the year, which is a lot of innings per kid. Now, each kid who doesn't pitch, now all those innings just get to a smaller and smaller amount of kids. And like, if there's 4 kids that pitch on this team, they each threw 150 innings probably.
If it's 6, it's 96.
Right.
96 innings per kid, which is right up against the existing MLB pitch smart limit for the year. For the year.
Right. And it's like they don't think of it's not they're not being nefarious with it necessarily.
No.
They just don't think about that piece of it and like the innings portion. And like that's I think it's still a spot that like baseball fans have to grow a little bit because there's a lot of obviously like still, you know, thank you. We haven't talked about him honestly in the pod for a while. So thank you, John Smoltz, for like all of the third time through the order penalty stuff. And it's like, you know, the way that teams think about this stuff is no longer really in terms of innings. it's in terms of outs.
Yes.
It's not in terms of games for sure.
Yeah.
It's not in terms of innings really anymore. It's now in terms of outs. I got to get 27 outs today.
Yeah.
Like if I trust my closer to get me 5 outs, and each of my top 2 bullpen guys to get me 5 outs, I only have to get 12 outs from like a starting pitcher before I can turn it over to these guys.
Yeah.
And like the more, even like into youth baseball, we can get focused on innings instead of games. Mm-hmm. People will start to realize that like, 96 games, it does sound like a lot, but it probably doesn't sound like a radical amount to some people. But like 600 innings of baseball throughout the year,
it's wild, man.
Does sound a little bit more daunting.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk to these kids these parents who their kids are going to be heavily pitching, and when they're not pitching, probably playing short or somewhere else, like a premium position. And it's like that is 600 innings of probably pretty high intent throwing that your kid is doing throughout the year.
And the thing to kind of wrap your head around is paying the cost there might not even happen in the short term, right? It might not even happen in the 9U season.
And I was going to say that with the testing too and collecting data is like, this is a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Like we're talking repetitive stress injuries. We need to see what this looks like over a 2-year span.
Yeah.
And like, it doesn't help us a ton to know that like, okay, the universal pitch counts made sure like a bunch of 12-year-olds didn't get hurt in their 12-year year. Awesome. Did they get hurt in 14U?
Yeah.
Like, what did it look like when they grew?
Yeah, we're going to have to ask those type of questions,
right? And the only way you can ask these type of questions and get answers is by testing and collecting the data and like having that ability. Otherwise, we're just spitballing here.
Yeah, yeah. So again, crap ton of work that needs to be done ahead of us. But I will say that being able to advance, I guess, Driveline's position and the Academy's position as somebody in this space who's like interested in this type of stuff is it's really important to me. Like it's really important to in so much as I think Driveline represents the bleeding edge of player development at the collegiate and the professional level. I have every aspiration to make sure that we are attached to initiatives like this in the youth space.
And this is how it happens.
Yeah.
Right? I don't know if I've
it's
talked about it on the
3
pod,
years.
but we've definitely talked about this. Is like when I was working in professional baseball, Driveline was a dirty word.
Yes.
Weighted balls were a dirty word.
That's right.
And we're talking within the last 10 years. And like we were both at Driveline when we dented that.
Yeah.
And you could see the dent, and it was clear that like, like things are going to change now that like we have made this sizable dent, and now like everyone's kind of staring at the dent and looking at us, and like we actually like have now made headway, and we haven't left that space. Like now we are like, I would guess at least every single broadcast talked about us probably no less than 10 times this entire year.
Yeah.
This feels like the dent in the youth space.
Yeah.
Like the first sizable real dent that we've made, like nationally in the youth space of like being able to have these organizations in the room in agreement. And like, we got to test some stuff. We have to collect data, and like, we're all seeing this with clear eyes. It does feel to me like the first real dent that people are going to start to like look, like we're going to look back at this in a couple of years and be like, it was that ABCA Youth Summit might've been the moment that like really started to turn this thing, because we all agreed to start testing, start collecting data, and start making smarter, more informed decisions once we have this data with us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have every intention of getting to that place.
Yep.
Like I have every intention of creating the dent. And again, relative to the circumstances compel it.
Right.
Like that 9U team playing 96 games and 576 whatever innings, that would be like, it's a problem. It is a problem. Yeah. It's a systemic problem, because it's not just an N of one. It's not just that team. It's that team fractal. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we good friend of mine invited us for his daughter's 6-year-old birthday party at a trampoline place this weekend. So that resonated when we were talking before. But like, I don't spend a lot of time with like 6-year-olds, like that's just my kids are older, but like we're past that stage. And I walk in there and I'm seeing all these kids, and it's just like, it's abject chaos. It's everything that you would think it is. And then in the back of my head, I'm like, people are doing 6U cash ball tournaments.
Every time
like what?
I've got 2 nephews, and every time I see something like to the age of below 8U.
Yeah.
I think about my older nephew who's about to turn 7, and I'm just like, I could not.
I know.
Imagine trying to play anything competitive with that kid and doing anything with him other than let's just have fun.
Let's have some fun, man.
Let's just have some fun and teach you how to do some things, and like it's wild.
Yeah, it is wild. So, anyways, good things are happening there. All right, I'm gonna give you the choice of our next potpourri topic.
I like it.
Do you want to talk about Danny's mocap, or do you want to talk about some hot takes about ice as a recovery modality?
Oof.
We'll hit them both. It's just an order of preference here.
Let's end with Danny.
Okay. All right. So, Facebook is a wild place for social stuff because again, it's largely older people, and you get some pretty far out takes about stuff. So there was in one of the large youth travel baseball forums, someone was like asking a question about ice as a recovery modality, right? And this person who is a top contributor to this forum, which means that their stuff gets then upvoted, or not maybe not upvoted, but it carries a little bit more weight and it gets more visibility.
Okay, I'm gonna hope that that we have at least one listener who's as illiterate as I am in this. Do you pay for that? Do you have to start the group? How do you get? You just post a lot and then you get that?
Yes, that's my understanding of the mechanism.
Okay.
So like, hey, what's should my kid ice his arm or should my kid ice their arm or not? What do you got? I'm just gonna give you a series of comments here. Ice will forever remain supreme. We always make our 8-year-old ice after pitching.
Okay.
8.
Yep.
Okay. Someone.
I have a great ice take, and I'm waiting to see if anybody commented.
First person response is very, very simple. Why? Because, let's get right to it. He usually does relief pitching, since he's playing up, and he plays short, second base, and catches. Okay, so 8-year-old playing short, catching, and pitching.
Playing short and catching, and then when he later in the game moving to pitch.
Yeah. On tournament weekends, he may have some soreness. You don't say. So he does about 5 minutes of ice on his throwing arm and ibuprofen, then some release exercises. First of all, I just love the casual, just like the super casual. Yeah, just gotta my 8-year-old just gotta slide him some ibuprofen. There isn't any other logical way to curtail this pain and soreness. And it's funny because when people ask me about how early should my kids start our throwing program, I typically say around 9, right? I typically say around 9, and then I always give the caveat, hey, maybe consider that my kid started when he was 8. Jake Witt, former trainer at Driveline, you can follow him on Instagram, had a great post about his son's throwing program that he's doing. And I think Jake's son is 7 now, 7 or 8. And he was like, look, we're doing some band stuff. We do a dynamic, we do some bands, we do some plyos. I'm not doing this for any real true development outcome. I'm doing it so that his son understands that there's a structured way that you get ready to throw a baseball. And we can come back around to this when we get to start talking about Danny's mocap. I have no idea if the overload underload throwing that he did when he was 8, 9 years old is really created a sustained long-term impact on the development of his throwing mechanics. But what I know that it did is if he's going to go pick up and throw a baseball, he knows he has to get warm. He knows he has to get hot.
And so your child.
Yes.
Good example of should know what he's supposed to be doing.
Yes.
We had a really, really good conversation not 2 weeks ago about warming up.
Yeah.
Right? And even someone like that, like a younger...
Oh, with the shoulder and hitting stuff? Yeah.
Like a younger kid can, when he understands this is what I need to do to throw to warm up, cannot make that connection necessarily to the strength side or the hitting side of if I there should be a procedure for warming up before hitting or warming up before HP or whatever it is. And that might be a problem. It was really difficult for me to get past, for me to even honestly listen to most of what that was after the insinuation of medicating an 8-year-old so that he can pitch.
Yeah.
Like, what goes through your head giving a child medication so that he can pitch in a tournament? Like, he's sore. Your first instinct as a parent, I'm not a parent, clearly. How is your first instinct as a parent to, instead of saying, like, okay, maybe you shouldn't throw?
It's
right.
crazy.
If you're sore,
Yeah.
we should shut it down. Let's go talk to coach. We should shut it down. Like, you're doing too much. It's no, take this pill and get on the goddamn mound.
Let me keep going. This person, the ice and ibuprofen for their 8-year-old advocate, then also goes, but it's only tournament weekends. He really doesn't have to do it on midweeks and hasn't had to do it during fall ball. We also have him do it during winter training because his practices and individual training may cross over as much as we attempt to spread them out. And like I had a friend of mine who they were down in Vegas. They've relocated a little bit, and his kid is 14, going into his freshman year. And he's like, "Hey, are you guys doing anything for like the summer?" And I was like, "Well, Aiden's he's in high school now. He should just come up and assess." And he's like, "Well, but like, how long should we stay up there?" And like, if we could be up there, for a whole week, I would do that. And I was like, my kid's only at Driveline like 4 days a week, right?
3. He's not even here the 4th.
Well, yeah, I mean, 4th is on field. He's only here 3 days a week. I don't know that enough people understand the very basic physiological, like, activity and rest.
That is 100% true. However, I cannot get my head around your child says there's like something wrong, and instead of like asking questions or trying to be like, okay, how do I stop this soreness from happening in the first place?
Yeah.
It's here, take this, and you won't be sore anymore. Now go on the mound and keep throwing and make me proud, damn it. Like,
go one level deeper. Go one level deeper. Well, he's got team practice and he's got all these individual training. That means lessons. That means
100%,
lessons.
yeah.
And at what point do you go, maybe we're just doing too much? Right? Like, it's just like, well, we try to.
It's clearly not the point of my child is telling me his arm hurts.
Right.
Because, like, I'm just going to say ibuprofen's the solve there. Like, this is the, what's the drug that they give the NFL players?
It starts with a C, right?
It's not cortisone.
It is cortisol.
Cortisol.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
This is that.
Yeah. Well, let me
I'm in serious pain. Oh, let me just like inject you with this thing and look, it's not going to heal the injury. But you won't feel anything, so you can go out there for 3 hours and entertain the people. Yeah, those guys make millions of dollars. Your kid's 8. You're a bad parent. I'm sorry.
So somebody replies, just wondering, because at 8 they shouldn't be pitching so much that it hurts. All the updated research shows that ibuprofen masks pain when pain is there to tell you that there is an issue.
I'm not even a parent, people. I'm acing this.
Blah, blah, blah. It is only recommended now to ice when injured because the cold can cause lack of blood flow to the area. And like, Alicia Bishop Hughes, thank God for you, because yes, correct. She goes, might want to do some research from orthos and sports medicine folks. Things have changed. And then this person, very, very like pithy little response here. Already done, love. He barely pitches 30 in any game. He has a physical therapist and a doctor that specializes in sports medicine, and we only deal with certified coaches. One thing our medical professionals emphasize, we be careful of people in one-size-fits-all advice. Also, building good habits now means he will be able to care for himself later on, regardless if he's sore or not. Look, if the mechanism by which your child is learning to care for themselves is icing and weaponizing ibuprofen, they're learning the wrong thing.
And I feel like this should be a blanket PSA. If you have a sports medicine doctor, consultant, actual doctor, whatever it is, and your child's 8, go to the bathroom in your house where there's a medicine cabinet. Keep it closed. Look in the mirror. That guy's a bad person.
Yeah.
It's
crazy. And for anybody that's not like super up to speed on this, I guess I might be taking some of this for granted. The guy that developed like the ice as like a recovery modality, basically came out and was like, I was wrong. My bad. Like,
so my hot take about this, which now feels way less funny, just throw it out there, was the Rookie of the Year hot ice.
Sure.
Because I had an athlete,
Yeah.
one of my athletes last week asked me about ice because he, without telling me,
Yep.
has iced it after practice, which, like, he isn't in enough, like, he's not throwing too much, he's not in pain, really. I don't really understand why he's icing it after practice,
Right.
other than he thinks that that's what you're supposed to do as a recovery modality.
And it could have just been like, I mean, it could be this. It could be this.
Correct.
It could be, because again, all these kids have access to all this information
Mm-hmm.
without any filter. Somebody's like, yeah, you just got to ice your arm after you throw.
Right. And, like, you know, it's how often, like, me growing up, let alone, I mean, probably not most of these kids, but, like, let alone anybody older than me, starting pitcher comes out of the game, what is he doing? He is sitting in the dugout with a giant thing of ice over his shoulder
And they see it
and watching the
on
game.
broadcasts,
Right.
right?
And
Like,
sitting there watching the rest of the
Yep.
game with
Yep.
super iced up. You saw it, so you assume that's... So, like, I'd have the conversation. He asked me, like, should I keep icing it? Like, I don't think it's working. And I was like, no, what I want you to do is try hot ice. And then he just stared at me. And I was like, hot ice? Like, and he's like, what do you mean? It's like, you heat up the ice. Take ice, put it in a microwave. And he's like, well, that's just water. And I'm like, you're right. It's just water. Now we're at the same spot. We're great. And, now I'm just depressed after this conversation, so I don't feel like making the Rookie of the Year joke of hot ice. But, like... Yeah, I mean, look, is it the worst thing that you could possibly do if you throw ice on his shoulder? No.
No. And like...
You're not going to hurt your child.
No, I mean, and as far as we understand in terms of like the actual physiological effect, the reason that people don't recommend ice as like a pain reduction modality is all you're doing is you're restricting the amount of like blood flow that goes to that inflamed area in order to like start the recovery process.
Yeah, you being in pain is your body telling you something is wrong. All you're doing by icing it is turning down the volume of your body. And just be like, nah, shh, I don't want to hear this right now. I'm going to turn this down right now. That dial's going to come back up.
Yep.
Like, whether you like it or not, the volume is going to come back on. And, like,
you didn't
even solve anything.
Yeah, I'll go one step further on your analogy. You didn't even change the volume, just hit the mute button.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
Because the mute button is going to come off, and
Yeah.
then... And I understand that this stuff is a little bit complex because, like, watching the playoffs in the World Series, you know, I think there was a Dodger pitcher who, like, immediately after the series, like, full ice arm. It's hard. It's hard to go like, well, don't do that when best in the world athlete is doing that. But like, all we can do is just leverage the science and the information that we understand. If it happens to work for like one dude, or if that's just the habitual behavior that they express, that doesn't change the base scientific understanding we have about this process and like why it's not recommended by the guy that created the protocol in the first place.
Well, and you don't know, all you know is what's in front of you, right? So if this Dodgers pitcher's wearing ice, you don't know, okay, how long is he wearing the ice for? What does he do after it comes off?
Yes.
What did he do before it went on? Like, what are the other recovery modalities? Because I can guarantee you he's not just icing it and calling it a day.
Yeah. Well, and like when Shohei jacked up his shoulder, right? He had that whole brace thing on, and I guess what that thing does is it like literally like gives stim and heat. Like that, I don't know. He might have had one of those under the wrap, and you wouldn't even know. And I just thought it was an ice arm.
And like some of this stuff, because again, the ice is not going to hurt you. It's not going to cause an injury. So like, you know, I've worked in professional baseball. If there's an athlete who's like, no, I ice myself after every time I throw because that's what feels good to me.
Yeah.
No one is going to tell that guy. Like, I'm sure many people are like, you know what the research says, but like, I'm not going to force you to, like, as long as you're recovering, like, you do what you need to do. You're a professional baseball player.
Yeah, I mean, this is Michael Jordan and the fried chicken before games, right? Like,
It's the same response I have to, like, when I have some athletes who ask me why certain kids can do that and they can't, and it's like, why do they get that privilege? Like, that guy throws 90. If you throw 90, you can get some special privileges.
Yeah.
He is allowed to do some stuff that I'm not going to allow you to do because he throws 90 and I trust him.
Yeah. So
And it's the same thing.
Yep, same thing.
But please, for the love of God, if your child is complaining about an injury, don't just like try to mask the pain. Like, it's not going to actually go away. And I have to imagine you want to make that pain actually go away and solve the root issue for your child, and not just like hit the mute button on your child.
Yeah.
Look, we've all wanted to. I don't have a child, but I've wanted to hit the mute button on many of these kids.
Yeah.
And like, you're just doing a terrible thing.
It's tough. It's a tough scene. So speaking of 90 mile an hour guys, we're close.
We're close. We are
You
close.
see the transition there?
I did. Saw it coming from a mile away, if I'm being honest, but yeah.
So segue, Danny had his mocap. Goal going into it is he wanted to hit 88, hit 86 on one of the turbo sinkers outdoor last year. Found an 88.5. Very happy camper. The thing I wanted to tell you, though, the interesting part is on his high school team, he plays with a bunch of kids who are on various summer ball programs, and it was interesting because he's going into his sophomore season, and he's throws pretty hard, and he's telling some of the guys on the team, and they're like, "Well, like how? Like how?" Because he's 5'9 3/4. He's not taller than me yet because I continue to shrink, which is phenomenal. Love that. But he's 5'9 3/4, $155, $160 or whatever. And they're like how? And he's like, I do the stuff. And they're like, well, how do you did you work on your mechanics? And he's like, no. So they're like, hold on. So when you go to practice, there's not somebody like standing right behind you talking to you about mechanics? And he's like, no, I just throw. It's like, and they're blown away by this, completely blown away by this. And
he's wrong though. He does work on mechanics.
He does mechanics. Yeah,
it's the heavy ball he throws.
Yes, that's the thing.
That's the thing behind him telling him what to do.
That's the thing, and and I think it was. I don't know. You never really understand what people think about what we do here until it gets kind of thrown in your face that way. Mm-hmm. But I think that the cool thing about some of these kids that have come through lately for us as part of our baseline motion captures, this is pre-velo phase, mm-hmm. And I don't even know that our velo phase is going to prove some massive significant jump. I mean, it's really hard.
Well, I mean, I don't know if we want to save this for another one, but we have a new mechanical composite report that tells us not just how much they're throwing above their expected velocity based on all their metrics, but if they had perfect mechanics, what is the absolute max that they could throw?
Yep. Which is relative to their current athletic body composition.
Correct. And most of the kids...
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna lie, I've done these meetings. A lot of these kids were kind of disheartened by this information. Mm-hmm. But it's like, hey man, you throw 77. You are throwing 12 miles an hour over your expected. Your absolute mechanical ceiling is a 79.
Right.
There is literally nothing you can do mechanically to help you get to an 80.
Yeah.
You have to gain weight. We have mastered your ability to have a lead foot and put your foot on the gas pedal and not let up.
Yep.
You have to have a better engine to work with.
Yeah, we need more horsepower. And, I mean, it's an interesting thing when you start to look at the data. It's like, Danny's total mechanical score, 93rd percentile. Arm action score, 86th percentile. COG, 69th. So, maybe... But again, that COG is going to be, heat check me here, to a degree function of weight moving down the mound and mass, right? Rotational velos, 93rd percentile. Hip shoulder separation, 87th percentile. And we had a really interesting conversation on Friday, when I was looking at the report, and I was just like, first of all, number one, you can get that type of outcome of long-term training progression without somebody in your hip pocket every time you throw telling you all the things you did wrong. I mean, I saw this video on Twitter this weekend, and talking about, this kid's he's like a 20-25 throwing 79, and it's we did the session, we're tweaking some stuff about his back foot to get a little bit more depth on the curveball, and we're tweaking this other mechanical thing to get a little bit more. And it's first of all, you probably just need to be a better athlete. Second of all, this whole mechanism of coaching, I don't know, man. I don't think that's it. I really don't think that's it.
I can prove to you that's not it.
Yeah. But it was funny to me that, like, you know, on his high school team, first of all, they're good ball players. They're good ball players, and they want to get better.
Mm-hmm. That's the part that kills me the most.
And they're in a more conventional system of player development, and that's kind of how the game has been coached for a while. So, like, I don't know, you know, like, I think what you said about the dent in terms of, like, this ABCA thing, like, I really hope that this summit was kind of the first dent. I do think that in the next, 24 months, we're going to see a dent in terms of the development results that we've achieved or our kids have achieved by virtue of being in this system of, like, long-term player development.
Well, I mean, this is like, the inside baseball here, but honestly, that's the dent that the two of us expected.
Yes.
We expected to have to sit here and wait for that dent to happen.
Yes.
Like, we didn't know that there was going to be another way to make a dent outside of, like, putting multiple kids at the D1 level who perform well or having a kid get drafted or things like that were kind of what we were reliant on to make our dent. And we knew that it's just a long game. We're going to have to be patient here. Like, most of the kids that would have any shot of helping us make this dent are younger. And like, we have to bide our time, continue to do what we know works. And it is working. Clearly it is working. And like, I do think the ABCA thing was a pretty big dent. And like, now we can cave the whole thing in.
Yeah.
Instead of waiting for that first dent to be getting D1 kids, getting kids drafted, like, maybe that caves the entire thing in when we get that, now that we have this first dent done,
Yeah. But the dent on the player dev side, it's like, when I posted it in our internal Slack, I noted that, he's now up a combined, because I have his first throw ever at Driveline. He's gained 40 miles an hour. From a very, a young, scrappy 9-year-old to a 15-year-old kid in 6 years, he's gained 40 miles an hour. And, there's a part of me that just, like, I want to lean into those parents and kids who they're desperate for answers and they want to get better. It's like, do you want to gain 40 miles an hour? Follow this program for 6 years. And it's not really it's not a compelling message for commerce because it's a lot easier to sell, the stuff that I see all the time, which is like, strap some shit on your body. Sorry.
One of the things that we use, I saw like an ad for saying add like 6 miles an hour velo in 6 weeks using this thing. And I'm just like, that's not why you should be using that tool. We use it very differently, but like, our message.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Our message is like not going to even be able to compete with those messages. Most people want the quick fix. They want it immediately. They want it now. And like, you can, if we have an ad that says gate 40 miles an hour in 6 years and somebody's got an ad that says 6 in 6 weeks.
No, I know.
Like, we can't compete with that.
I know. But
we just get them after they do that program and either get hurt or it doesn't work.
Yeah. And then they're looking for answers. Yeah. There's just a part of me that, like, and I understand that kind of the quick fix thing is natural, like you're
100%.
just looking for those type of answers. But I think between the kids, like, so like there's no one who's just like doming you up about your throwing every time you throw. I talked to D and I talked about it, when he was relating that story to me. He was just like, I'm really glad I don't have all these different voices in my head when I have to go throw.
Yeah.
And, there's that whole thing too. But I also just think, the developmental inefficiency is really a tough thing to grapple with, because it is kind of, I don't think I'm painting with too broad of a brush to say that it's very, like, emblematic of our industry, that's kind of the standard, and then, you combine that with all these other, like, normative behavior. It's just like, well, we have to play fall ball and we have to play winter ball and I have to showcase in the winter. I have to give my 8-year-old this ibuprofen. and then we all land in this place where
a 12-year-old has a tolerance to ibuprofen, so now it doesn't even work anymore.
Their stomach's all jacked up.
Their stomach's jacked up, and he doesn't want to play baseball anymore because it hurts every time he tries to play.
Or developmentally, you see a kid that is, getting a different result than you are, and you can't kind of wrap your head around, like, well, how did he land there when I'm working hard? right? I'm working hard. I want to be good. I'm doing all these things, but it's like the day-to-day choices. You know, the day-to-day choices are so wildly divergent before you even get into like the reality on the training floor about like how that goes. I don't know. I'm just, you know, I am looking forward to, you know, that dent that's going to happen in the next 24 to 36 months when, you know, being able to tell the long-term stories is going to be really cool. And again, it's professionally validating to feel like, you know, we're that close to really confirming that we were right. But again, to connect to the thing that I was talking about yesterday, watching Connor Veals hit 3 liners during that scrimmage that were all torched.
Just missiles.
It's the process, man, and to see that validation happen for the kids that have committed to it, that's the thing, dude. That's the thing. Because, like, so on Friday, when I showed up here looking like the Toxic Avenger and just absolute zombie status, I was walking to the offices and I was walking by one of the cages and Veals is in there. And, I think it's fair to say that Veals has the capacity to be a much better hitter than he's shown. You know, like for sure.
He is one that is constantly doming himself up about internal cues and mechanics.
Yeah. And, when I'm walking by the offices and I see he just finished his round and he was upset. He's upset. And, he was talking to one of our trainers, but I've known Veals for a little bit longer. So I just kind of stopped and I was like, I just said to him very briefly, I was like, man, I know that this is frustrating for you right now. And I know that this sucks. And I know this sounds crazy, but you have to love this process. You really have to love it, because if you love it and continue to commit to it, I know how hard you're working, dude, and you're gonna get there.
Yeah.
And I wanted to tell him that when he's down, because that's when you need to hear it the most.
Right. And most athletes, good ones especially, like Connor, have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
And can do it and have done it. And the issue is they're missing the consistency piece.
Yes.
And for someone that age, that is so frustrating.
Yeah.
Of like, I know I'm capable of this.
Yep.
Why can I not do this consistently? And like, even like grown adults don't do this consistently.
Yeah.
Like, it's not going to be consistent. And like, we have to tighten that feedback loop to try to get it as consistent as possible. But you have to be comfortable with a level of inconsistency.
Yeah.
And like understanding how to make those adjustments when you aren't consistent.
Yeah. And again, for a kid, because they struggle with this type of context stuff, they might need someone to reiterate that, like, it's going to be okay. Like, it's going to be okay. Like, I don't have anything technical to say to Connor. We have way better coaches than me that can be on the floor, you included, that can give him that stuff. I saw the kid was struggling. I just wanted to let him know, man, like, you have to love this and you have to love you, even if you're struggling, because if you continue to put in the work, good things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. So we have on-field scrimmage yesterday. First AB, liner torched like 325, left center gap. Second AB, popped it up, got under a little bit. Third AB, liner. Fourth AB, liner. Like, just all those balls were torched.
All of them at least 300 feet.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. He went off. And for anybody that's seen some of our like on-field scrimmage stuff, we have done a lot of like machine scrimmage. This was live BP from one of our coaches doing short box. So
right.
Like, you can't.
This wasn't a machine. Yeah.
Oh, he was not just sitting fastball middle. Like, it's not even that.
No, because shout out to Scott, but Scott was mixed pitching it.
Yeah, shout out to Scott. So after Veals' second liner, when I was just kind of like walking around the field, after the first one. I'm walking by and was like, hey, man, like that ball was torched. He was like, yeah, that was cool. And I was like, you need to start carrying some confidence in these ABs, dude, because you can do that. Mm-hmm. Look at it. 2 more liners. And then at the end of and then in practice, he kind of came up to me and I was like, look, man, here's the deal. You're going to have practice tomorrow. And in the cage tomorrow, it might still be a struggle, but that's okay.
Yeah. So
in the technical drill cages that we do, right? Like think about the swing, right? Like, be there. But when, on the eye pitches, which in our training sessions is a little bit more of like the live fire thing, just be you.
Yeah.
Just be you. Like, get out of your own way. Carry that confidence, because like, look what you did today.
Yeah. Well, so 2 things going on. One, we also had an athlete who, I'll shout out Kellen. did something that me, his coach, and one of his biggest supporters, honestly didn't think he was capable of doing.
Yep.
And, like, I felt terrible that I didn't think he was capable of doing that, and then he did it. And, like, because most of my kids know the only word that I will not let them say, outside of, like, racial slurs. Like, they can swear, I don't care, I'm not going to police that. The only word that, like, they don't utter in my presence is the word can't.
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm never going to ask you to do something that I don't think you're capable of. You saying can't means I'm not even going to try to do that thing.
Yeah.
So, like, they know, especially if they've been with me multiple years, like, they know I'm not even going to drop that word. Or if I say it accidentally and then coach asks me, what did you just say? Oh, crap. I must have just said the word can't.
Yeah.
Kellen is an athlete that came here and continues to have a very suboptimal arm action.
Mm-hmm. It's gotten so much better.
It's gotten so much better. But he was small. He has siblings that are not
small.
Not small. Sisters that play college sports. Dad is a big dude.
Yep.
Mom is not short. And he was just like a late bloomer.
Yep.
And it was one of those things where, like, I kept telling him, everything looks really good. You just need to grow. You just need to get bigger. And, like, yeah, man, there's a part of me where I was like, am I lying to this kid? Like,
yeah, sure.
Is he actually going to grow and get bigger? Like, I assume so because of the rest of his family. But, like, there's a chance I missed him.
Yep.
He's now taller than me, the bastard. Sorry, I shouldn't swear on the podcast. But he's taller than me now and put a ball into the warning track yesterday. And, like, I was so proud because I didn't think it was possible, honestly.
That ball was smoked,
like,
too.
that ball was crushed, and I didn't think he had that kind of force in him.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's a kid that a lot of other orgs would have given up on.
Yeah.
Especially at 15U.
Because he was
last year,
very small.
Because he was really small. And, like, yeah, he was kind of relegated to second base with his throwing velo, and like, a lot of other orgs would have said, nah. And we're just like, no. Like, you work hard and you're going to grow. We just got to wait for it. You're a late bloomer. And, like, we're seeing the fruits of that labor now, which is really cool. The other thing that I was going to say here is, and we can cut this out of the pod if you don't want me to include this, but talking to Danny on Friday, a really, really good conversation with an athlete telling me that, wait, I'll start it with, he comes out to me and goes, I don't want to hit anymore.
And if you don't want to, like, quit at least once a week, are you really even trying?
Correct. And I've said that on the pod before, and it was in relation to your son telling me at least once a week he's going to quit. And he came up to me and said, like, I don't want to hit anymore. Which normally it's, for the last couple of years, it's been the other thing. Where he doesn't want to pitch because it's too much pressure, too much stress. He would much rather just, like, hit, be shortstop, whatever. I don't want to hit anymore. What? Yeah, I'm not having fun. And I said, okay, when was the last time you had fun hitting? Like, instead of, like, shut up, whatever, like, you're fine, you're good at hitting, whatever. When was the last time you remember having fun hitting? Sunday. Okay, what about Sunday? It felt more game-like, whatever it was. When we got down to it, it was, he can hit a ball 78 backside, hit a ball, and he feels like he failed on hit in the cage.
Yeah, because you PR. Yep.
He does that in a game with a runner on second. I'm thrilled.
Yeah.
You just scored a run. Like, you did exactly what you needed to do. And too often, if we really get too comfortable with the cage environment, the athletes can start to grow out of love with, because you're not seeing your successes frequently enough.
Yeah.
And like, you have to, like, lower those expectations and understand, like, what the point of this is for. And, like, that's, like, Connor's another really good example of that. Of like, he is an athlete who has always been better on the field in a game than he has been in the cages.
Yeah.
And he really struggles with that because he feels terrible in here. And then it doesn't feel the same when he goes outside. He feels a lot better.
Yep.
It's the same swing. He's mishitting the same balls. They're just like, it's so much cooler when it hits the grass and I get on first, as opposed to, like, oh, even if it's a base hit on hit tracks, like, you don't feel that.
Yeah, if you don't PR, you don't top eighth it, like, it's not as rewarding.
Right. And there's just, like, that thing that'll always be there that I think we can lose sight of a lot of times, of, like, the making sure they understand that, like, you don't have to PR in every swing.
Yeah.
Not every swing has to be an 18 mile an hour or 18 degree top eighth line drive into a gap. Right? Like, ugly swings matter too. I say it on the field. Like, it, and, like, a lot of times they feel like one of the things you were also said on Friday was there's literally never a time I'm going to see a 3,000 RPM sinker in a game this year. And like,
Probably right.
And like, I don't feel getting blown up by it in the cage is like making me, it's not fun. I'm just so not enjoying doing this.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. And that's a kid who understands why it's as hard out here as it is. Yeah. And still like the loss of fun and joy. It wasn't like I suck at hitting.
Yeah.
It was like, I know I'm good. I'm just not having fun.
Yeah.
Hitting.
Yeah.
And
we
like,
can take some signal from that too.
100%. But and that's the point is like, I think that's a thing that like we are always still working on and everyone has to work on of like reminding them of the joy in this game and like picking up your wins where you get them because the rest of this is a huge grind.
Yeah.
And like, you have to not, when those opportunities come to make it less of a grind, you have to like really lean into them to make it less of a grind.
Yeah.
Because for most of these athletes, like they're going to spend a lot of time working, training before they hit their next PR.
Yeah.
And if they go that in, if their only win in their head is a PR, you can't go 2 months of training without a win and still feel like you're getting value out of the training.
Yeah.
And like, I think that is the benefit of going outside once a week for us is like, they can see directly how it translates, right? We're not hitting it in a cage. We're not hitting it into a net. Like this ball that HitTrax told me went 310. Oh man, there was a little bit of wind today. That ball got over the fence. Now I feel great.
Yeah.
Like my PR on HitTrax is 319 feet distance. So like I hit a ball 310 and I was like, cool.
Yeah.
I've hit one 10 feet further before. Like that's not that cool. Yeah. I hit a ball over the fence outside. I don't. Yeah. Even if I've done it 10 times, still tight every time.
Yep. That's right.
And like that's that piece is really important and like really reminded me this weekend from Friday to Sunday, like how important that is, especially as we get into the literal dark days of winter in Seattle. And like making sure they're ready as possible for their high school seasons.
Yep.
Of just like really leaning into this, like make sure they find joy at every single practice.
Yeah.
Because there's so many better ways they can spend their time.
Yeah.
And like if your kid who, and to be clear here, I'm not endorsing this, but like would still do this if he found no joy. Like that's not honestly going to stop him from doing this.
I know.
And like I wish that wasn't the case, but like there's a lot of kids who would stop from doing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like those kids are leaving the game because dad's making them take an ibuprofen when they're 8.
Yeah.
Because like what joy is that kid finding? He has to probably win based on the context clues I have about his parents and the household he lives in. I bet that kid really only feels joy when he wins a game. And honestly, probably only when he wins a tournament because you can win 2 games and not win a tournament and you probably have that whole car ride home of popping ibuprofens and your dad telling you about the walk that you gave up.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines.
Yeah, I wish we could help more parents understand that. I guess that's why we do the pod.
That's why we do the pod.
That's why we do the pod.
And I don't feel like we need to help parents understand that. I don't think there's really that many parents out there who would disagree with that idea.
No, I for sure.
It's much less the understanding as opposed to just like there's a better way to do this and they don't know that way exists.
And that's the problem is I think the issue is that the understanding is there, but then when it comes to decision making around that and solving for that, they get kind of lost. And it's like, well, we just have to do the same stuff that everybody else is doing. If the best 9U team in the nation put up 96 games last year, I guess we got to play more games. We got to do all this stuff. So hence everything that we're trying to solve with the youth committee and the summit.
Well, and there's stuff with, and now that my kids are getting older and more talented and a little bit more aware of some of their competition in the area, they, more than one of them has been made to feel soft about how much they practice and how hard they practice and how they train and things like that. Because if you're not playing fall ball and if you're not lifting 6 times a week and doing X, Y, Z, pounding yourself with creatine, maybe other supplements that you shouldn't be taking, or maybe not even supplements, maybe things that you shouldn't be taking. They're made to feel like I'm soft because I'm not doing as much as that guy. in the name of my dream. And it's like, no. You are working smarter, not harder.
Yeah.
And like, you're actually working harder than that guy. He just doesn't realize it. But like that, I think there's a lot of parents that don't understand that aspect and don't want to feel like they're being outworked.
Sure.
Like that's why their kid's not going to make it, is because my kid got outworked by that kid down the street. Because my kid's only lifting 3 times a week and he's lifting 6 times a week.
6 days of lift, 6. And are there outliers out there who can do a 6-day-a-week lift and not get worse? Sure. Like I know that Herschel Walker exists, right?
I would make the argument that it all depends on what your lifting program looks like.
Sure.
You can absolutely form a lifting program that is 6 days a week that doesn't
you're right.
make you worse or whatever. Yeah. The way we lift, which we feel is the smartest way to do it, is 3 days a week where you get to recover in between lifts.
Yep.
If you lift at less volume, less intensity, maybe you can increase the amount of times you're lifting because you don't need as much recovery time in between lifts. I'm not here to tell you the way you're doing it is wrong, but like you should poke some holes and ask some questions. And like, I'm just going to keep coming back to this because I'm never going to get this out of my head of like a parent whose 8-year-old is saying my arm hurts. And like, instead of, so what's the root problem here? Why does your arm hurt? It's just like, no. Yeah. Take this ibuprofen and shh. Yep. You're embarrassing me.
It's tough.
Johnny down the street's not complaining about his arm. You're soft. Yep. Take this ibuprofen, go throw.
Yeah. And ice.
And ice.
And ice. And ice.
And ice.
We're going to fix it. You got anything else?
No, but to wrap, because I wanted to end on Danny, because that was like a happy thing. I wanted to end on a happy note, and I feel like we didn't make it there, probably because of me. But
I mean,
it was cool as shit.
Yeah. It
was really cool.
He was very, very happy.
I should stop swearing. We didn't say this was an explicit pod.
That's fine. We're pretty deep. You guys are.
It was really, really cool. I wish you had been there.
I know.
It is hilarious that you weren't.
It's the only one that I've ever missed.
I know. And it's kind of funny. Like, the irony was not lost on any of us in the building. But, like, it was a really cool moment. Something that was earned and deserved. And, like, we've had a bunch of those over the last month with a bunch of these kids. And it's like, all we want to do is tell these stories, and there's too many stories to tell.
I know.
And, like, that's an awesome thing. And, like, I feel like when we can put all these stories together to tell them and finding the right way to tell that story is going to help us increase the size of that dent that we made with a lot of these people who, and like, this is one of the things that I talked about today in the meeting, but like, I feel like a lot of times parents don't see their kid represented in a lot of the things they see, ads, training, whatever. So they think, oh, if my kid isn't this, that thing's not going to work for him.
Yeah.
And honestly, with a lot of those things, it's probably true. Like, if your kid isn't a biological outlier, like that thing is not going to. He needs to gain weight. He needs to get stronger. Yep. Like, that program is not going to work for him. And we've taken a bunch of different kids with a bunch of different mechanics, different body types, different work ethics, and this program has made every single one of those kids better.
Substantially.
And like, there is zero chance with all of these stories you won't be able to find one that's a close representation of where your actual kid is.
Yeah.
And like, what we did with that kid to make him better. And I feel like there's a lot of parents out there that are just like, well, I have to do what everyone else is doing because no one has shown me like how my kid can actually be made better by this.
Yeah.
And I feel like we're really close. We just got to figure out the best way to tell a lot of these stories, because like the last month of doing all these retests for these kids has been some of the most professionally and personally validating stuff that we've seen.
Sure, man.
Because like, I know how hard these kids work. I think I calculated I've spent over 1,000 hours with this group of kids.
Yeah.
And like, I know how hard they work.
Yep.
And it's so cool to see the results that they're getting, and we're not even remotely close to the end.
Yeah, I mean, it's November.
I'm talking about the end of their baseball career.
Oh, yeah.
But like, yes, the end of even the development season.
Yeah.
But and like the confidence that comes with it.
Yeah.
The energy that comes with it. And like, I just want every kid to feel that. And we could do it for every single kid.
I know.
Every type of kid out there we can do this for.
I know.
And we just have to like find a way to make sure they know that like someone like them is represented here.
Yeah.
And we've made that kid better. We've taken him in. We've made that kid better. We can do it for you too.
Yeah.
You don't have to like quit the game or play a million games a year or do whatever you think Johnny down the street is doing, and Johnny's a foot taller than you and weighs a bunch more. Like, there's a better way that you can do this and have fun and love the process.
Because at the end of the day, hard work gives you honesty. And I mean, it's just, the development stuff is an expression of that ideology. And the fact that I think you're exactly right. The fact that it's deployed, it's a system that's deployed against everybody is what makes it valuable.
I mean, you had a kid like Danny who's been here since he was 9, who, like you said, 5'9", he's taller than me at this point, so somewhere between 5'9" and 5'10". Doesn't weigh a ton, does not have supreme genetics.
Sorry.
You got a kid who's Noah, who we talked about, Noah.
Yep.
Very different body types.
Yep.
Lucas, who we've talked about, Kellen, who we talked about today, Connor Veals, who we talked about today. All of these kids have gained at least 10 miles an hour in multiple metrics that really matter, and they're all drastically different humans, athletes, and like there's a system that like this parent said, don't go to one size fits all system. This is that, but it's also not that.
Yeah. Yeah, because the system adapts around you. It doesn't. That's the important thing.
I agree. The one size fits all things don't work.
Yeah.
Don't think that that's what this is.
Well, geez, man, think about even the freshmen we got coming around, like the Levi's and the Parks and Shoe. Like,
don't leave Bob out of this.
I know. Bob Coma.
Bob asked me if I thought he could throw 88 this year 88? After the Danny thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, Bob, you threw 84 in July.
Yeah. Yeah.
Real possibility if you hadn't, lost a little bit of weight. I don't know if you saw how skinny he looked yesterday, but lost too much weight playing football. But yeah, man, you could do this.
Yeah.
You could absolutely do that. And that kid started with us when he was 12
Yep.
and wasn't that good.
Yep.
And we're proving it every day.
Yep.
And I just want everyone to be able to get a live view into all these results so they can see what this looks like. And we're not just, we talk about this a lot and we've never really talked about it in the pod, but both of us are, you way more than me, but we try to not promote Danny because you guys probably get sick of hearing it, or just even anybody on my team probably.
Yeah.
You guys get sick of hearing it. It's one example and we know it's good, but we have so many different examples of different kids,
Yeah.
different styles. It's not just Devin's kid that this worked for, although it definitely worked for his kid. It's a bunch of different kids that this has worked for, and he is one of the best examples of that. But you don't have to be that kid.
Right.
You could be a bunch of different types of kids, and it doesn't matter what you look like. If you put in the work and you follow the program, you are going to get better, whether that means you make your varsity team or you play college baseball or whatever it is. You are going to get better in this system, and we're proving it every single day. And the last month has been really, really cool to see all these numbers and actually the looks on the kids' faces when they do a thing that they didn't think they could do.
I know. But it's funny. I was listening to another podcast this morning, the one that I told you I was going to listen to on the way in. And one of the things that they were talking about, this idea that high school baseball revolves around the program. As well it should, right? Mm-hmm. It revolves around winning because it revolves around the program, and there's kind of this concern at baseball at all about what travel select summer ball is being taught. Are these kids too focused on their individual achievement versus the team? And it's I look, that's a discussion for somebody else to have. But in terms of the capacity, right? The capacity in terms of the structure that the opportunity affords us. High school baseball in the state of Washington, at least, is a very constrained period of time. So high school coaches are really on the back foot about being able to develop just relative to their schedule. I can't tell anybody else how to run their business. I can't tell anybody else how to run their travel select club program or whatever. But the reason that this thing revolves around development is because that's the thing that the kid can feel very convicted that they earned, right? It is built, not bought, right? And yeah, I'm aware that we take checks from parents to train their kids, but that just affords you the opportunity to come into this system and work, right? That's just it. And everything that we do, from the practice volume during the off season to the structure of our games to accommodations around high school baseball or little league baseball or whatever is strictly to get this developmental result. That's the point. Because what else should I be able to feel good about giving that kid? You know? Like, we got trophies and all this other crap, like, you know, the 2022 PG high school, you know, championship thing there, right? I would hope the kids on that team, when they reflect back about the experience that they had being with us, because they've all graduated now at this point, doesn't revolve around that. I would hope it revolves around a commitment to process. I would hope that it revolves around hard work turning into self-improvement. And I would hope that that thing turns into more of a life skill than a baseball skill.
Yeah. I have never seen a kid not get better within our program unless they intentionally didn't follow what we were trying to do.
Yeah.
Every single kid I've seen, like, whether it's going from like a negative to like a 0, or like actually becoming a really talented baseball player, every kid has gotten somewhat better, if not massively better.
Yep.
The only kids I've seen that haven't actually improved, and they don't get worse, they just like basically plateau and stay the same, are the kids who attendance is low.
Yep.
When they're here, they're not necessarily following the guidelines. They're throwing too hard on recovery days. They're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Like those types of kids. And, you know, hard work gives you honesty. Like, you're not working hard. You're not following the thing. You're going to get the honest assessment of what that looks like at the end of the day. And then, you know, like another kid that I absolutely definitely want to tell the story about is Clive.
Dude. It wasn't just the haircut.
It wasn't just the haircut. Big adjustment, though. But, like, that's a kid who nobody's taken that kid when he was 14.
Yeah.
And that kid is not a bad baseball player now.
Yeah. Yeah. Night and day difference.
And like the thing that I love the most is seeing the confidence grow, because confidence is earned, and you can give it to somebody. You can give it to a kid by like gassing them up or whatever, but it's at the end of the day pretty fragile if they don't actually feel like it's something they earned.
Yeah.
And like every day you can come into our gym and see kids earning confidence.
Yeah.
And, like, that's a thing that you can't take away. And, like, I don't know if Clive's going to go play college baseball. It'd be tight. It's possible.
Yeah.
But, like, I do know that he's way more confident than he was when he first walked in the store. He's a different kid.
Yeah,
he carries himself in a different way. And, like, that's going to do wonders for him in life.
Yep.
Just understanding that, like, oh, I can invest this in myself. And, like, I can get returns.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a really important point to make because, you know, again, when you paint with too broad of a brush, it's like, oh, you know, summer select club ball, you know, it's just me, and who's got the flashiest sliding glove and all this. Like, sure, I understand. I know what you're talking about. I understand. I get it. But just be aware that, like, we're teaching the other thing, right? We're teaching the other thing too. And look, I can't go to any of these kids and be like, hey, you know, winning a tournament for Driveline and winning a game for Driveline should be as important as your high school. Like, I can't say that because all your friends go to your high school, right? That's your entire social community. It's your entire social world generally exists right in front of you in high school and then on their phones. And then again, the more that stuff gets propagated on social media, it's like it expands the area of effect there. So, you know, if we win a tournament in the first week of June, okay, like it's cool. It's different than when it is for the high school. But the thing that we can teach, the perspective that we can teach is very, it's almost the same thing that you want the high school team to teach, right? That's the aspirational thing that your high school program should teach you is commitment to a goal, right? It's commitment to culture. That's our culture. Our culture is development. And if I have a choice between making our culture be about development or making my culture be about winning, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, one of those things has a foundation and the other doesn't.
Right, because the more that if our culture revolved around winning, Kellen doesn't have a shot. Clive doesn't have a shot. Those kids come in, we would see them as risks. Smell you, the door's right over there. And, like, can you imagine?
Or even if they come in first year, But hey, that team didn't win enough. We're folding this entire team.
Sure, but again, think like if we get lucky enough to get like the 6'1", 180 version of Kellen Murray by the time that he graduates high school, that kid's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Lucas McGraw might ever not grow above 6'8", 6'9". Lucas,
5.
Okay, well, I
said
got
6'8".
I know. I'm sorry. 5'8",
yeah.
5'9". Sorry,
Luke, you will. I have confidence you will do it.
That's right. That kid is going to get every single iota of competitiveness out of his frame for his entire high school baseball career. And where it takes from there, I don't know.
It's also a kid who's really confident in his own abilities.
Yep.
And like that was a thing that I worried about last year, and it a little bit came to pass. Is sending my kids off to high school. What happens if things go wrong? Do they maintain that confidence?
Sure.
That level of confidence of like, oh, like I'm okay, I got this, even if certain things start to go wrong. And I think overall they did, but it did do a number on a couple of them. It chipped away at that confidence with a couple of them when like I'm getting benched or I had a bad game and like coach didn't say anything to me, but like now I'm not starting or like I got moved down in the lineup or whatever it is. Like those things are going to happen, and the less confidence you have, the faster you're going to quit doing that thing.
Yeah.
And like having all the confidence in the world because you know how much work you put into it and you know how good you are at it allows you to continue to take those little chips and dings and like keep your head down.
Because you earned it.
We call it irrational confidence, but it's not irrational.
Yeah,
it's
right.
earned.
You're right. Yeah.
Except for Deion Waiters. That was super irrational. Shout out to Deion Waiters.
But
like at most people, it's not irrational confidence isn't irrational confidence when it's earned.
Yeah.
And like a lot of professional athletes have earned that confidence.
Yeah.
And like that's what we're trying to do with these kids here.
Yeah.
Go earn it.
Yep. That's about as perfect as ending as we can have. Got anything else?
I got nothing.
All right. He is Jeremy. I am Devin, the Sudafed Kid. We are Down by Law. We'll catch you next time. Thanks. Bye.